You shared with such kindness, and the way you spoke today and listened, it was stirring things up in me. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can handle this. Welcome, everyone, to a special episode with special guest, Mrs. Sakino Mathilde Sternberg-Jalom. She is a very one-of-a-kind person with an extraordinary background, and I'm excited to have her on this show. Ms. Jalom was born as the second of 10 children and grew up in a strict Catholic family, is from West Germany, is a accomplished psychologist, has written a book that I find very intriguing about trauma. It is called How to Move an Elephant away from trauma towards life. She works in many various fields when it comes to psychology, from trauma therapy to how do we say it, the systems, family systems, sexuality, all kinds of fields of psychology she's an expert in and has worked in, renowned person in the field. And I'm just honored that you're on the show today. Welcome, Sakino.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you agreed to speak to me. You have, as I mentioned in the introduction, a very unique and extraordinary background. What led you to want to work in the field of psychology?
Whoa, long story. I mean, I grew up in a very violent and traumatic house with strictly Catholic is not in itself traumatic, but I was exposed to a lot of violence and sexual abuse by my father and other family members. And at some point, I think I was around 17 or something, and I was attending a retreat in a monastery. And this retreat was life-changing for me because this monk that I had individual talks with, he was a listener. He could listen. And until then, I didn't really have anyone in the family anyway, not, but also outside the family, except for one priest occasionally who listened to me. But he was the first person really listening. And I was asking all those questions like, how can God? I was a believer at that point. I believed in God, but I was doubting that a God could allow such cruelty to happen to people. And this monk he said, I don't have an answer to the question, but maybe you want to study some philosophers, read something. I mean, I was 17, very, but still, I was intrigued. And then from there, it was a very short way for me to discover psychology and psychotherapy and the science of human condition. And then I decided to study psychology and become a therapist to help people. Yeah.
What a powerful way of using your own story and your own pain to
Yeah.
want to help other people. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by when I read about your biography. I was intrigued by how you work with family systems. Can you tell our
Mhm.
viewers what that means, what that entails?
I was already trained as a family therapist in my early time as a therapist. And the model I studied was the Virginia Satir approach, who says when a child in a family is developing symptoms, this is not the child developing symptoms, it's the child pointing out that something is wrong in the family system. So the child basically is the symptom carrier. So in order to heal the child, we must work with the whole family and see if we can fix or help that family system to heal. So that was the beginning. That was as early as in 1981, 1982. I was just at the beginning of my therapeutic career. And then so I studied her approach. I worked with that approach a lot. And then my life just took me different ways. And I learned all kind of other therapies. Primal therapy is another one. Um, And in 1995, I realized for myself that all those very emotional, releasing, screaming, bioenergetic stuff was okay to get steam off my system, but it did not really heal the deep wounds that I was still carrying. And then I got to know Bert Hellinger, a man who invented family constellations, a method that is, I would say, further developing the approach of Virginia Satir and psychodrama and all those kinds of approaches. And so I attend, someone, a colleague recommended him. I said, well, this is really interesting what he's doing. So I attended a seminar with him. And from the first moment, I was caught. I was just like, wow, this is so deep and so profound. And so I studied with Bert Hellinger for quite some years. Um, and that has become my main tool in my work, family constellations, because I truly believe that, or it's not a belief system, it's an experience, that when someone is like me, developing trauma response behaviors, like, oh God, how can I say that? In relationships, someone is always repeating the same pattern of choosing the same kind of partner that might be unhealthy for them. It always goes back to the very early primary relationships we have. So my insecure attachment um, to men in my life, and also to deep friendships. I mean, it's not only to men, certainly rooted in my fear-based childhood and experiences with my father, who abused me. So I learned not to trust. And you cannot, in my understanding, you cannot heal that by only working with the individual and searching inside the individual what are the roots of their problems. You have to look at the system that they have been living in, grown up in, the family of origin, but also the society, or let's say the religious system. So to include that into the therapy, that has become my main tool of working with people.
What powerful work. I find it so intriguing.
Yeah.
Would you think that this experience, as you say, is applicable on a macro level when we look at society as a whole? As you know, and I mentioned in my emails that I'm trying to explore therapy in our digital age, trying to understand how is it changing, how are people changing now that everything is through video and Zoom, right? Can we still have an intimate human connection with one another if there's a screen between us, etc.? Many questions that play in there. Do you think that this experience is also applicable there, where you have an individual struggling with whatever they're struggling with in this technological age, and that is a reflection of the system they're in? And if so, what can we do to help people in this setting?
Well, I mean, technology is very helpful, first of all. I would say I'm grateful for all the technology we have because it enables me, for instance, or has enabled me and other people to work in times where we couldn't meet personally. So I didn't have to cut off the connections. I didn't have to end my trainings, my group therapies. I could continue. So that there is a lot of benefits and blessings in technology. But then, of course, there is the other side of it, that it also helps or supports in isolating people. So when as an example, if I would be afraid to meet other people very closely and intimately, um, let's say going on Zoom like we do now, or going into the internet, going on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those media, and creating a parallel universe of meetings that are not so intimate and so close, uh, it can help people, but it also can support further alienation from others and from oneself. So I think the answer isn't simple. The answer is very complex, or complex. Uh, I think technology is a blessing. Without that, we would not be able to communicate uh, over large distances and everything. But it also can be a danger. And when I look at some young people who spend their lives on the devices instead of relating in the real life, that certainly is a danger. Yeah.
If we, for example, had someone who is struggling with being behind a screen a lot or finding themselves anxious or depressed, I don't want to just create a label, but let's say just a person who is hurting. Um,
Yeah.
and since you mentioned that oftentimes a lot of our wounds tie into the family system, let's say this person is wounded, but it's being reinforced because of the societal system they're in, right? A lot of the polarization going on, the tension in the media, maybe there's cyberbullying, etc. How can we help that person who's maybe showing symptoms that result from the system they live in, just like with the family systems? How can we help them if we can't control what other people are doing on the internet? What can people do to find comfort or healing to those wounds in a system that's hard to control? Versus, in a family, maybe you can meet with a family or, have family counseling or dive into the family system with that patient.
Well, first of all, if someone is really struggling, like really having severe issues like being depressed or being anxious or even being suicidal as a young person. Let's talk about young people, right? Teenagers. I don't know. I mean, first of all, in young people, what I see is that they isolate, and one can only hope that someone in their environment can break through that barrier of isolation and reach them and talk to them and allow them to express what they are truly feeling. I think that's the most important. And that can be, if it's a parent, of course, would be wonderful. But if it's not a parent, it could also be a friend or a neighbor or another relative or a therapist. I mean, I don't have, I do not have a one size fits all solution, because it's always the individual that you have to find a solution for. And I have in the back of my mind several people that I'm thinking of right now, uh, who are in that kind of struggle. And especially with teenagers, it's so difficult to reach them. So difficult because teenage in itself is already a struggle. All the hormone changes, the the not knowing who I am, not understanding what happens in the body, in the emotions, everywhere. It's so difficult. And I have worked with a few teenagers who were so suicidal. And my experience with them was what they mostly needed and what helped was that I was just listening to them. I did not give advice. I was just there for them, listening to them and listening to their thoughts and feelings. And as much, I remember one, it's quite some time ago, with that girl, I would just sit for an hour and sometimes she would not say a word for the whole hour. And I was just sitting there listening to her silence.
I love how you just worded that. Oh, that just touched my soul. Listening to her silence.
Mm.
That is a very powerful statement. It touches me because I think you are absolutely right. And I hear the words wisdom in your words that people need to be listened to. And is it perhaps because there is already this slew of information we receive, especially in the digital age, even teenagers, right? There is enough information. I mean, quite frankly, nowadays we could even ask AI or Siri for some advice if we
Oh,
needed
yeah.
like
Mm.
three ChatGPT. I mean, it's just taking off where you can put in,
Yes.
give me three things I can do today to help my anxiety, right? And the feedback will
Mhm.
be quite precise.
Yeah.
Course, but there's no human connection there, but there's information, a lot of
Mhm.
information. But
Mhm.
can AI really listen? Can it share the human experience? Can it give us, or even a stranger on the internet, can it make us really feel seen in our existence? And so what you just said strikes me, because even listening to someone's silence, to me, makes me think this person sees that I exist, both
Mhm.
in the things that I say and in the silence in between. And if that is
Mhm.
not the most loving gesture of really acknowledging someone's person, and maybe that, yeah, I could see why that in itself is already healing, to
Mhm.
really be allowed and safe to exist in the presence of another person who knows pain and knows suffering. You're not a robot. You're not just a machine pushing information. You feel, you have your own pain, and now you're listening to just put myself in that patient's shoes. You're listening to
Mhm.
my silence. You're listening to me. My silence being a part of me. A beautiful, beautiful Sakino. Wow. Do you think that this type of listening, the kindness that you just given us an example of, can be done through the internet? I know you said technology has its benefits, which makes sense and I understand and agree with. Do you think that connection can be the same as in person when we're physically present with each other?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm since COVID, I'm almost only working online. And I believe that that connection can be created via internet. It's of course, there are things missing like physical closeness or the smell or like the energetic exchange between the two people. But still, for some people, they even feel safer on the internet because they don't have to create a distance if they need a distance. They don't have to create boundaries because the boundary is already given. Um, they don't have to leave their homes and still have a connection with someone. And for people who are very severely traumatized, especially in the interpersonal field, whose boundaries have been violated a lot, for them, it's easier even on to connect on Zoom or whatever medium you use. Um, So I do not really see a big difference. You can create a very close relationship via Zoom. It's possible. And I remember just now one of my students in my training that I facilitate. He said, yeah, he expressed his gratefulness for the training, and especially he said how we created an intimacy that I had not expected to be possible on Zoom. And this guy is someone who does a lot of trainings and therapy and stuff, which is a lot in physical. And this was the only thing he did on Zoom. And he really appreciated how close we came those 1.5 years that we studied together. So yes, it is possible. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I like that. It gives me hope as things become more and more digital. You mentioned earlier that in your journey into psychology, you were at a point where you did still, believe or have your religion, and you were trying to understand why God would allow certain things. May I ask where you stand with that now, and how that plays into how you view the world in the field of psychology? Where does faith come in? Is there room for spirituality? How do those worlds come together for you?
Yeah, it's so funny because exactly that guy that I was just talking about, he asked me a similar question.
Really?
Yeah. And it's, how can I say that? I do not believe in a God as a person. No, like Godfather sitting on a cloud and this kind of things. No. But what I do believe is that there is something like maybe I could call it an organizing principle, some some organizing force in the universe, which we don't know where it is, why it is, and what it does. But I believe that the world and the universe as it is right now and has been over millions and trillions or whatever of years, there must be something bigger than my mind can grasp. And this belief or this trust has grown, especially since I am facilitating family constellations or constellations because what happens in those sessions when we do constellations, you know constellation, you know how it works.
I'm not as well versed in it. I was about to actually ask if you can elaborate a little more, because I have my idea of what I think of when I think of constellations, but I want to make sure I don't confuse it, and I also don't want the viewers to confuse it with what we know of constellations, or what is it,
In the
astrology,
stars.
etc. Exactly. Yeah.
No, the way it works is when we do it in a group situation, for instance, group members are invited and asked, would you like to be a certain person, for instance, from the family system, father, mother, or even other things. And when the person agrees to take that role, that's how I work. They stand up and then immediately the role takes them. So they feel like the person they are representing. They are experiencing different body sensations, different emotions from their own, which they know they are not theirs. And this can only happen because there obviously is a field of information around us, which when we invite someone into our family field, let's say, we are transmitting the information of that field to that person that represents a member of that system. And this, when I started working with that, I was stunned that it's working. And when I took, I mean, I participated in a lot of constellations myself as a representative. And whenever I'm taking a role, I'm overwhelmed by what is happening with me, as if someone is taking charge of me. I'm still there, Sakino is still present, but something else is working. So working with that method has increased my belief that there must be something bigger than I understand organizing. And it's not a person, it's something, I don't know, information field. I mean, Rupert Sheldrake, I don't know if you know the name Rupert Sheldrake. He is an English uh, biologist who researched the so-called morphogenetic fields, where he researched how information from one member of a species is transmitted to another member of the species without words or without any known pathway. and he researched a lot in that. And my belief is that probably we are all part of morphogenetic fields of different kinds, and information gets transferred between us so that we can, and also what we do have, which is scientific proof, we have mirror neurons in our brain, which enable us to tune in to another person, what they experience. So we can tune in with that. So all this is a, I would say it's a field of not 100% researched things that we experiencing when we are relating to each other and when we are working with systems like I do. And that increased my belief in that there is something more than my small mind can grasp. So that's my belief. Spirituality for me is a very practical thing. It's nothing beyond normal life. It's like when I'm sitting here with you, being in this present moment and nowhere else, being in the moment, experiencing the moment fully and totally. That's for me spirituality. So it's not praying or, and actually I sometimes pray. I pray to whatever force there is to help, like when I look at the situation in the world like right now. Somehow I pray that this will change, that there will be peace in the countries, that there is war, that there will be changes in situations in the world that are so terrible right now. Uh, but it's not a prayer to a person, it's a prayer that I send into the universe to do something or to help, something like that. So if you want to know what my spirituality is, well, that's what I would say is my spirituality.
Oh, that's a beautiful response. It's very profound. As you can see, it's touching me. It's to speak back on what we just discussed a moment ago with the type of intimacy that can be created even through Zoom. I feel like your authentic response and your vulnerability, thank you for that, and sharing what you've experienced and why you've come to your conclusions is it allows for this space to be more personal. It's very powerful. How can we differentiate um, when we are stepping into those constellations and we are starting to feel and view the world through this person who we took on, if you will, for lack of a better word? Is that okay to say it like that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
How can we differentiate between the feelings that we believe are that person's and not our own, because we understand the difference between myself and this character that I'm representing? How can we differentiate between that and possibly our own projections? So, for example, if I were to participate in a constellation and I say I will be the eldest sister of our family construct or the mother. And now I will feel things that I can definitely tell are this person, but how much of that could possibly maybe be how I perceived that person and those gaps that I fill with my mind, assuming this is the person, but it may just be my projections or transference. Is there a way that we can assess which is which so that it's authentically this person?
Well, again, it's a very complex question. First of all, I would say, first of all, of course, when we are representing another person, uh, even if we experience their whatever they experience, uh, at the same time, usually or often, we know that that's a feeling that we also have, maybe in a different way, but like anger or sadness, grieving, whatever, happiness, love. So that's the first thing. But I would say the evidence that we are really representing another person's feelings is when I work with a client and they see, let's say, their family of origin, and those other people are not there, it's just the client, and the representatives of the family members, they express something, even sometimes sentences, and the client says, oh my God, this is exactly what my father says. But the representative doesn't know that. So it must come from a different source.
I see what you mean. Okay. That's hard to explain away with.
Yeah.
I've heard this in my subconscious, stored it somewhere because I know my mother's
No,
voice.
no, because usually there is very little information about the system. I usually work with very few informations, so that the representatives can express very purely from what they experience in that moment. So they cannot know because they haven't heard anything.
Right, right. There's a level of unbiased, I guess, if you will, or
Yes.
objectivity. And are these often done then in group settings, or I mean, group therapy where members of, from various families and their own walks of life
Yeah, yeah.
participate? Are these things also done in those constellation trainings? I know you offer trainings and courses
Oh
as well.
yeah, that's what we do all the time. In that training, we it's a very structured training and a very beautiful training, but what we do, we look at the family of origin of every participant so that they get a deeper understanding about the dynamics. And there are many things that we are looking at. For instance, the transgenerational transmission of trauma in families, which is a very big thing, especially as I work a lot with Holocaust survivors and Israelis. And in Jewish families, there's always something with the Holocaust. And the transmission of trauma is very often very evident in the system, how the descendants carry the wounds from their ancestors, you know. So so yes, we do constellations, and we do constellations all the time. I mean, that's and of course there are also other things. As I said in the beginning, the art of listening. There's a whole module uh, dedicated to the art of listening to life stories. And we also, I teach about how to deal with trauma, how to recognize trauma symptoms in clients and stuff like that. So, and how to take care of yourself when you work with people. That's a big one too.
Oh, I appreciate you shedding light on that and including that in the training. I think that is very
Yeah,
important.
it's so important because there's such a lot of burnout in therapists because they don't know how to take care. I mean, I would say the majority of therapists are people who have learned very early in life to serve others. When you look at their roles in the families they come from, or they have suffered severe trauma themselves, but there is a lot of, I want to help others, like it was with me. And, and how can I help others? And how can I do even more? And then they forget to help themselves. So this is also part of the training.
Love that. I have actually been eyeing the training for myself. I'm actually hoping to participate in some of it in the near future. It looks very valuable and profound. And I like that you said that because since we've been speaking about therapy in your particular fields in psychology, I do see that also tying into our conversation about the digital age, because when it comes to even care for self, as you mentioned, there too, I've been intrigued by how we go about that in our digital age and how sometimes that self care, as the term has been coined, ends up not being very self-caring at all. Could you speak on that a little bit? Do you have any pointers as to how people go about that in our social media world that may not actually be very caring for themselves? Say, those terms like Netflix, chill, relax, people ending up scrolling on their phone to unwind. Um, any thoughts on what does self-care really look like? And What is or
Well,
is it not?
honestly, I don't find anything wrong with sometimes or even oftentimes to uh, indulge in binge watching romantic movies, as I do. Is one of my ways of re unwinding is watching cheesy love comedies, rom-coms. So I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as it doesn't, or as long as it is not a substitute for human contact. So it's there's nothing wrong. Uh, I mean, self-care is such a big theme. Uh, I don't know where to start. For me, certainly it started with learning to set boundaries. Boundaries in terms of when I do a session with someone. That's that's one example. Or also when I do groups, anything. I always start on time and I end on time. That's a big, big, big way of self-care. Because then I know, yeah, this is the time I've set for myself. And it also, for the clients, it shows them that it's okay to set boundaries.
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
modeling it to them, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a big part inside the therapy and also inside my groups and the trainings. My students, they all know I start on time, and who is late is late. I'm not waiting. So it's a great role model for, yeah, it's good to start on time. First of all, it's respectful, and secondly, it's also self-care and it's boundaries. What else? And I protect my privacy in terms of maybe even too much sometimes, that in my private home where I'm now, I mean, I do all my groups and everything from here, but I would not, and I did that differently before until I was completely burned out. My private house is not an open house for everybody. It's my refuge. It's
Yeah,
my,
your sanctuary.
yeah, my sanctuary. I did that very differently in years, and it ended always in burnout because I was just like, oh yeah, I can be open for everybody at any time. Not a good idea. So keeping some privacy and some protected space for yourself is good. Then what else? I mean, I do the things I like. Like I like music, I like reading, I like shopping. I'm a passionate shopper. I like beauty in all variations, starting from, I mean, as you mentioned, the art. Those are all individually chosen pictures from artists I know. Yeah, they are very beautiful. The small ones, they are from an artist in England who I discovered on Instagram. And yeah, he is a young man who is painting all these very special paintings. The big one is a gift from my best friend, who is a great artist. So everything is very, very uh selected. So oh, yeah.
I see the word that comes to my mind is intentional. You seem very intentional with your time, with your space, with the things you, and that makes me think if we're talking about, like even scrolling on social media. I appreciate how you pointed out there's nothing wrong with that, binging, being on the phone, using these technologies. But I like how you pointed out you do the things you like. And I think when we practice healing our wounds and being self-aware enough, even as we're binging or swiping, if you will, perhaps that's always a good guideline to go back to. Do I like this? Is this something I'm enjoying? Am I swiping out of habit, or are these pictures now causing me anxiety and comparison? And now I feel like I need this outfit that this woman has, or this car this man is driving, and now I'm unhappy. I don't like this. I'm just scrolling because everybody else is. Or can I honestly say I'm enjoying myself? I'm on my phone, and I suppose the intention behind it. and the why
Yeah.
will determine, is this actual self-care, nothing wrong with technology, or just like you said, a distraction from what you really want and like and need.
Absolutely. I think you're completely right on because that's the criterion. If you, when you like it, also all my things in my house that I have, all the objects, everything, even clothes, I had a big spring cleaning urge the last couple of weeks. Yes. So I went through my house and I I had my windows cleaned. I went through my closet and I just yesterday, yeah, just and I went through all my clothes. I put my piles of t-shirts on the bed and I went through each one. Do I really like this still? And then when I don't like it anymore, it comes on a different pile and I give it to charity. And that's a very good feeling because I don't throw things out. I try to give them to someone who might like them. So yes, the criterion is, do I still like it? And the other criterion, of course, does it still fit? Because if it doesn't fit and you keep it in the hope that you will fit in 5 years from now, big mistake in my understanding, because 5 years from now you might not like it anymore
Ooh,
if you fit in.
oh, that I like that perspective. I like that. The intention and confidence you show up with is very beautiful to me, Sakino, and it is inspiring. I'm very grateful for your time regarding those constellation courses. Do you recommend who is the ideal person to participate in those things for viewers who may be interested,
But the ideal person is a difficult question.
who can benefit, I guess one could say? Is this just people who want to dive into their own constellations and their own trauma, or practitioners who want to understand?
I have a mixture of both kind of people. I mean, the first criterion, of course, is someone interested in personal growth, that they have the feeling they want to change something in their lives, or they want to gain a deeper understanding about themselves. That's always good. That's the starting point. And then, of course, for practitioners of any kind, even I included at some point, I included lawyers, yeah, social workers, teachers. So teachers who have an understanding about systems, family systems, they can much better relate to their students.
That makes
Or
sense.
lawyers, like let's say family lawyers who are dealing with divorce and stuff like that. Or even lawyers dealing with crimes. If they have a deeper understanding about what happened in the life of that person, maybe they might be better lawyers.
A very good point. I hadn't even thought of all those professions where that directly plays a role.
Yeah. I think practically everybody who has to deal with humans
Yeah.
in a maybe not a salesperson, but no, that not so much. But everybody, like lawyers, they really they deal with human fate all the time. And if they have a better understanding about systemic connections, they might be able to help their clients better. I don't know. Midwives, but therapists, of course, and social workers.
And what are your goals, if I may ask, for the near future, the upcoming future? Are you hoping to go back to the States to be
Well,
reunited
that's my
with your
biggest
husband?
hope. Yeah, and of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the biggest hope I have and the biggest wish I have. And I'm happy for everybody who says, I press my thumb. Because right now, of course, with the present administration in the States, everything is even more unstable and more unsure. But yeah, that's the hope I have.
And any other projects or any books that are in the making, perhaps, or how can viewers
Um,
best support you?
Well, first of all, Irv and I wrote a book together, which is the manuscript is finished, but and it's now at the moment it's laying still because we cannot work on it before we are not together. Uh, it's very hard for Earth to concentrate when we are on Zoom and then working on the book. So we delayed it for a while, but it will come out at some point. This I'm sure about. So that's one project, and of course, I'm still working on the English translation of my book, which is a totally renewed version of the elephant book. It's lying also in my closet, and then I'm with my assistants for the training. We are working on a manual for this training, which my future vision is that this will be published as a book for everybody with the principles, because I'm not only, my work is not defined by family constellations. My work is really defined by my attitude to how to guide and accompany people on their way. So it's not, it's called Heal Your Roots, Family and Systemic Constellation and Trauma Healing. So that's the work. And trauma healing includes so much more than family constellation. It includes, as I said in the beginning, the main thing I think is that someone has the experience that they are listened to, that they are heard, that they are perceived by the person that is with them. And the art of listening is one of my biggest teachings, if you want to say so.
I look forward to exploring more of your work and seeing all the things that bloom out of your existence. It's beautiful to watch. Sakino, for everyone watching, go make sure to go check out her website, sakino.de, correct? Sakino.de. And you can find
Yes.
her on Facebook as well, Sakino Stenbeck Yalom. Go subscribe, go follow her. As we're speaking of therapy in the digital world, this is the perfect way to support
Yeah.
authors and psychologists, psychotherapists in their work and share their work and their expertise and benefit from it too. I'm looking forward to participating in your training myself.
I would love to have you.
Oh, thank you. I think it might be messy at first. I could see a lot of trauma and wounds coming up. I'm almost hesitant. You shared with such kindness, and the way you spoke today and listened, it was stirring things up in me. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can handle this. I could see it being very beneficial. That's why I'm so intrigued by it, because I think that my dilemma sometimes with therapy in our day and age is it's been interesting trying to find someone where you can have that deep, intimate connection. And I find it interesting that even through interview, though I understand this is not a therapist patient situation, even here now I have been feeling does that active listening, that good listening that you've been describing. I've been seeing a level of intimacy and kindness from you, and that alone was steering things in me. And sometimes my concern with therapy nowadays is when not done right, or when that intimate connection is missing, those deep wounds are not addressed. There may be, kind conversations, there may be some external feedback, some affirmation, 10 ways to feel better and to breathe better, but the deep stuff is not addressed. So I'm very intrigued by your work, because I'm seeing a level of deep healing and care that I think many are longing for, that goes beyond an exchange of information, as even Irvin Yalom expresses in one of his books, where he talks about it, the danger of becoming a commodity. So I see in you and your work and what you're offering the world something that is of substance. And I really recommend all our viewers to go look into her work and explore and see if that's something for you, her courses. But I appreciate your authenticity today for showing up with intention.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. I'm very happy we did it.
Make sure to go check out the website sakino.de and go check her out on Facebook and support. Thank you so much for your time today, Sakino. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you.